Your manifestation usually doesn't go straight from nothing is happening right up to the final result. There's a whole shift that happens internally if you know where to focus and what to look for. Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Hello to the new viewers who happen to click on this video. I hope you enjoy. Stick around and click that subscribe button. We are talking about what is going to lead you into your end result and what is that invisible middle step that's actually leading you to the final end result. Your dominant thoughts will start changing before your circumstances do. I always talk about it. The internal precedes the external. You can't just wait and click your fingers and expect, okay, my 3D reality has to shift. I just said an affirmation. I just implemented a manifestation practice. Why hasn't it shown up here yet? It has to come from your dominant focus, your dominant thoughts. That is what creates it. There's no magic spell or magical equation that is, okay, here's the answer and you force your manifestation to come in. It is about what's going on in your mind. So the answer basically, please keep watching the video, but the answer basically is, to get that shift in circumstances, it has to come from your dominant thoughts. That's what causes it. So stop automatically expecting the same outcome with, the same approach, the same way of thinking. You will reach this point where you stop automatically expecting the same outcome. So you're not going to keep expecting the old story, the negative circumstances. That's not where your mind will go. That's not going to be prominent in your thoughts. It's just not going to be the main focus. Obviously, as I said, the dominant focus, with time, with persistence and effort, you're teaching your thought patterns and your neural pathways and just everything in your mind and body to align with and start to believe in the new story, the affirmations, all the effort you're putting in. So that's what's going to start to come in and what you're going to expect and what will be in the forefront of your mind, of your thoughts. You won't keep expecting SP won't text back. This isn't going to change. I'm not going to see my manifestation come in, or, I'm not going to get success from doing this. You're not going to just immediately jump to this negative assumption. So even if you're not seeing it yet, when your mind starts thinking like that, that is a huge bonus sign. And then your affirmations will actually start feeling a lot more natural. So you will find that repeating them is maybe more enjoyable. There's less of that mental conscious resistance coming up. Yeah, you might enjoy the process more. You might feel the emotions tied to it. It might feel more realistic, less like you're kind of trying to force this outcome and force a shift. It will just start to feel more normal and natural. The same way if I asked you guys now to list out 3 times a fact about yourself. I have brown hair, I have blonde hair, whatever. It would just feel normal, natural. Your mind's not going to push back and say, what do you mean blonde? No, I'm not blonde. How can I be blonde? You're just not going to think that. That's kind of the level you're going to start to reach with your affirmations when it's normalized, when they start to feel good. You will also find that you react differently to those same circumstances. If you're still experiencing or seeing the negative circumstances in your external reality, or something from the past that has been really prevalent and hard for you to mentally overcome, for example, you will just not react to them in the same way. And it will actually be harder to maintain belief in those and assume and still hold on to and believe in, that's my life, that's my reality, these are the circumstances I have. It will start to be categorized in your mind as the old story. So again, this isn't a magic spell where if you think about manifesting that 5 days later, it just becomes super easy and quick. You have to put in the consistency and effort, understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and know, okay, when I do this method and I teach my mind this and I think this way, it's helping me improve. It's improving my mindset. It's shifting my beliefs. So you understand the reason why you're putting all this effort in. So rather than that desired outcome, the end result you're focused on, still feeling out of reach and like this impossible, kind of dream life bucket list scenario where you might think, it's unrealistic or impossible, it starts to feel a lot more attainable and realistic. And of course, because it's all about the internal movement, you will stop feeling this need or desire to convince yourself. It won't be, that you're trying to desperately create a new belief or fighting back and forth with your own mind. It will be more natural. That mental resistance and the barriers will be lowered. Maybe not 100% gone, and that's completely fine. Oftentimes that comes once you receive your manifestation, or as you're leading into those final steps, maybe the bridge of events that brings everything together in your reality. But you will feel a need, you will feel less of a need. You will start to remove those barriers of needing to convince yourself. That is often tied as well to self-concept and just the way you think about your life, how you value yourself and, your ability, your success, what you're able to achieve. That negative self-talk that a lot of us deal with, that is quite normal, especially when trying to achieve a goal that feels difficult. It will decrease, it will become more positive, it will improve. So basically that self-concept will start to reflect that of someone who already has it, that of your future self. So it can be very specific. It doesn't literally have to be, 100 different types of self-concept of thinking, I'm perfect, I'm beautiful. It could be something like, I'm capable of achieving anything I want. I am good at manifesting. When I put my mind to it, I can achieve it. Those types of thoughts where you're feeling confident, self-assured, balanced, mentally balanced, mentally healthy, that type of self-concept where you just feel secure in your life, basically. If you are serious about elevating your manifestation, then please do consider joining us in the LOA Coaching Darlings membership group. Click the button below, just below the screen, to get exclusive content and support all throughout the month. For example, with a specific person, with a relationship, I know this is a very common manifestation for people, you will feel less of a need, less of a desire, and it won't even be this automated reaction to analyze every interaction or analyze their behavior or all their words or, hold on to every single word they say in a conversation in the hopes that it will be positive, it will go in your favor. And you'll probably just start assuming that they value you, they want to be with you, that maybe they're progressing or reaching this point where they're open to the relationship and taking those steps forward. You will just start to have more positive assumptions, positive self-talk, as I just highlighted regarding self-concept as well. And you will basically start literally erasing from your subconscious mind those negative assumptions you may have had. Doesn't have to be about an SP, but that was one example I gave. The negative assumptions that maybe held back your current manifestation, you will start erasing them. Another example, if you're manifesting something tangible, like financial wealth, money, a certain amount of money, or just a tangible item, you'll find, and if you apply self-awareness, you really pick up on it and say, wow, oh my gosh, I am actually feeling and thinking so much better. Your mind won't jump straight to, I can't have that, or I can't afford that, how could I buy that? And you'll kind of start thinking from this mental state of abundance, of already having it, or even just of, this is more attainable, this is more realistic, I can definitely see myself getting here in the future. Just more positive thoughts step by step. It doesn't have to be, like I said, jumping from point A to Z straight away. And the biggest sign of what's going on internally that is leading you into that, before I jump into the next section of advice, is not even some big external movement or something outside of yourself. It's that you mentally are no longer that old version. The version of you that may have jumped automatically to a negative assumption, to doubt, to thinking the reasons why something can't work or why you're not capable of doing something, that's no longer you. Remember that your 3D reality, the external reality, your physical life around you, it's also not a magic, click of the fingers shift that does a 180 shift in your life. It can still reflect and show those old assumptions, the old dominant focus. If you went through a period where, because of certain circumstances, and especially ones that affect you emotionally, that's been replaying in your mind and you've really struggled to move beyond that point, your 3D can still be reflecting that whilst ticking off, the list that I just gave you guys in examples of internal shifts and internal movement that then leads into the external movement. You can be on the way, you can be doing those things and making great progress, and your 3D currently is still reflecting the old version. So it's not an instant reflection. We have talked about this before and in other videos about the 3D time lag, time delay, where, like I said, it's not this instant mirror reflection where you look at your mirror reflection, obviously, and that's you as you are in the present moment. It needs time. Obviously, it's not a magic spell, it's real life. It does need time for things to shift and unfold. So you're seeing what was created before, where your dominant focus built that up before, your assumptions, your life experience, what's been going on around you, your relationships, all the things that tie in and impact what is showing in your 3D reality, the things that have shaped it, but rather it is not yet showing where your focus has been right now, what you've decided in the present moment, in the recent past, meaning maybe the past week, the past few weeks. depending on how much you waver. Give it a bit of time. Do not judge everything in the progress of your manifestation just by what is being shown in your circumstances. That is also why one bad moment, one bad day does not mean your manifestation is off track or ruined. So even if you've been making progress and maybe you stumble back into an old way of thinking, that doesn't mean everything has been undone or that you've failed at it, not at all. It still takes time to reflect. So that means it's giving you extra time to build it back up, to push yourself back on track, and not in a really difficult or stressful way where you have to, spend 5 hours to fix a problem. That's not the mindset at all, but rather just to say, okay, I'm going to apply my mental diet. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to, do what I can to not think that way going forward. And what really ties it all in together is maintaining and building on that assumption in your subconscious, because the subconscious feeds off of repetition, familiarity, knowing, okay, this is what's the norm, this is what I imagine, this is what I'm being told. The literal data and information that is being fed into my mind. If I'm correct, I believe I read that our brains take in trillions of pieces of information and data. It's capable of storing and listening and kind of absorbing tons of information, not necessarily retaining all of it, I presume, because otherwise studying at school would have been a lot easier, but it's taking in so much data and it needs repetition, familiarity, knowing this is the norm, this is the new normal. And then for your brain to be able to not absorb necessarily, but to maintain and access and think according to the new mindset, it needs the repetition. That's how you build it up and stabilize it for your mind. Don't make the mistake of thinking, I don't see it yet, and then taking that to mean, well, it just isn't happening. Movement is super slow. Movement is not working. Why am I not able to manifest? A lot of my clients do initially come to me with those types of questions, or why am I doing this so wrong? I know sometimes in the comments as well, people say that, but really it's not about doing it wrong. Don't conflate the two where you're saying, well, I don't see it. I haven't physically received my full manifestation, therefore everything is imperfect. Don't jump to that worst case scenario. Maybe do a bit of self-reflection, say, okay, maybe what is it that maybe I'm doing that's causing this to still be reflected, but also understand everything I've just said about the timeline of the manifestation. The biggest mistake is letting yourself fall back into the old way of thinking, the old negative mindset, just because your 3D hasn't quite changed yet. And then if you keep going back to checking and saying, let me check if it's here, let me see the progress, and really trying to micromanage your entire manifestation and asking, how will this happen? How will that happen? You're keeping your focus on it not being here. You're keeping your focus on, this is missing, I need to go looking for it. Your job is just literally mentally to keep bringing yourself back to the assumption that you've decided, that you've created, basically your affirmation. What is that end result you want? You bring your thoughts back to that. I'm going to very briefly touch on a topic I've been looking into recently, keeping it more on the surface because it ties into quantum mechanics. But when it comes to quantum measurement, your outcome, your current outcome and focus is probable. And the measurement process changes the state being measured. So when you stop, consistently measuring your manifestation against the old story, the old reality, it's changing your state. It's changing and putting the focus on that outcome that's already a probability, and keeping your focus there, and just literally putting your focus and measuring the current new state, the new story. That's where it's changing the state. Maybe I didn't explain that quite right, but it's a complex process that basically means when you put your focus on the probability of you having the desired reality that you want, that already is a possibility, everything collapses into that version of that reality, and you just keep putting your attention, bringing your attention back to the version that you want to experience. And this is honestly where that persistence becomes super important. So you don't need to maintain this perfect mindset or perfect belief. The belief gets built up. It's not something you force. You can't force yourself to resonate with or believe in something, but you just keep coming back to the new assumption you're building instead of letting your mind fall back into that old way of thinking. So eventually that new story, the assumptions that you're creating for your manifestation, becomes the default, becomes the automatic way of thinking. It's like an automatic reaction. The affirmations start playing in your mind. It just becomes like a learned thought pattern. So you're basically creating and leading into your manifestation as something natural and normal, not something that you're attempting to get now. So really do your best to start thinking, speaking as if, and kind of behaving as if you already have your manifestation now. And remember that the internal shift comes in first before your 3D is going to reflect it.